Welcome to The Rough Draft, a show for writers, by writers, with a focus on the platform medium. Joining me today is a newcomer to the platform whose work you probably have already read because he's quickly become a top writer in the categories of advice, in inspiration, writing, life lessons, and he's been published in the Ascent, Publishous, Better Marketing, MindCafe, and the Startup, just to name a few. This conversation begins from his flat in London, but it takes us all the way to Okinawa, Japan, where we learn a lot of life lessons. And it also brings us back to his childhood, where he mastered the art of karate. So very excited to dive into this conversation and welcome Amardeep Parmar to The Rough Draft. Welcome. Thank you for joining. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're coming in from just outside London, right? Or is it in the center of London?
So it's Stratford, so it's just outside the centre.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I know that's probably encroaching into your evening right now, with it being about 8 o'clock where you are. So thank you for making it work and allowing us to come into your home. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I want to waste no time getting into it. I've been following you now probably since you joined Medium, which looks like last July, but I refuse to believe that you've only been writing for about 8 or 9 months now. So what's the history? How long have you been writing for? Where have you been? Why am I just finding out about you right now?
So I feel like I've been very lucky with Medium and how it's gone so far. So I did a blog maybe 4 years ago, which had probably 5 views in its entire history. And then I deleted it, got rid of the website, completely forgot about it. And then I joined Medium. It was mainly just to read, to be honest. I had no intention of writing at all. And then I thought, why not give it a go? And it was mainly because I was enjoying reading so many other people's work, but I never expected it to take off. It's just come out of nowhere for me.
It really has. I know you wrote a blog, and one of the lines in it was that you were unprepared for your first or second piece to really take off, and you give some tips about, put some info in your bio or have a signature that someone could find your newsletter. Between 4 years ago, when you had that first blog with 5 views, and where we are today, were there other exercises in writing? Were you doing copywriting? Did you have a newsletter? Were you just keeping the dust on the keyboard?
Just keeping the dust on the keyboard. So my day job is in technology. So okay. I don't really write at all other than emails and the odd instructional guide. So for me, it was just something which I was trying to write how I talk. And I think that's why it's kind of worked for me. Mm-hmm. Because I say, like in my pieces, I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. I'm kind of talking and I read it out loud. Does it sound like me? Does it not sound like me? And it seems to be working. But
I do a similar thing. I have a stand-up desk and I'll write the draft sitting down. But when I'm in edit mode, I'll stand up and almost perform the piece just to say it out loud and say, is this my voice? And that's cool that you do a similar thing where you're like, I got to make sure that this is my voice. One of the questions I had for you, actually, this leads right into it, is some of the markers of your writing. How do you define your style? What do you think readers look for to say, okay, this is one of his pieces?
I think a lot of it is to do with talking to the reader. So I try not to overcomplicate things because, so I'm from a background where I'm from the UK, but I know a lot of readers aren't from the UK and they don't have the educational background I do. So I try to make sure that I'm not trying to impress anybody by being overly wordy or using big words. Mm-hmm. And it's the idea of talking directly to the reader, and telling them this is how it can help you, rather than just talking my own life without giving them the context. So I think I ask quite a lot of questions during my pieces, and it's trying to get the reader to think about what I'm saying, not just skim through.
That comes out because you have a lot of pieces that may start with the what I learned from or how to do this, and they're educational. And as writers, we can educate and we can aim to relate. And it sounds like, you first want to use your voice and your style to allow readers to relate to you, an invitation to bring them in and then educate them, which is it's coming in at this like equal peer-to-peer type level, which I admire. And like you said, I understand every word in your post. I never feel that I have to pull up the Oxford Dictionary or Merriam-Webster in the next tab and say, what does he mean when he says that? Okay, this makes sense. Beyond that type of style and what a reader could expect there, post-publishing. So we're looking at, you've written a brilliant piece. It's live in a publication. Are there any other actionable strategies that are just anchoring a distribution strategy? Are you doing anything special, anything unique to get views onto your writing?
I think one of the big things I think a lot of writers forget about is using the people you know in real life. So I see people have got 0 views on their articles, and like they must have somebody in their family they can send it to, or friends. And I think that's the way I started initially, is send it to my friends, send it to my family, and you can get that kind of feedback and it kind of gets you going. And then from there you can build it up. So some of my friends send it to their friends, and it's this kind of online way of doing things that I think helps quite a lot.
How did you go about sending it to friends? Was it email, text?
So it's just WhatsApp. Just get the friends link, and then, because a lot of my friends have never heard of Medium, it's not something which is very popular in the UK at the moment. So you have the thing, I don't know if you had it as well, when you tell our friends that you're writing a blog, they kind of roll their eyes a bit and they're not quite sure how good it's going to be. So for me, it was quite nice to kind of get this proof of, okay, a few of my friends like it. And initially, again, I didn't really have a distribution strategy. It kind of fell on me because it was pushed out by so many other people. So with the piece that went viral for me, when you look at the stats, a lot of people have shared it themselves on Facebook. They've shared it on Twitter. And I think that's the best strategy you can have, is make something that other people want to share as well. So now I started doing it myself. So I share on Facebook groups, I share on Twitter, I share in Quora a lot as well. So it's really difficult to tell for sure what's going to happen.
You hundreds of thousands of views on Quora, and that's a foreign platform for me. I haven't really gotten my feet wet there. When you were talking about the first time you sent a blog to a friend and just their response, family members being like, "Oh, you're a writer now? Like this is new to me." How many times did it take for you to feel that they started respecting you as a writer, but also for you to really believe in yourself and say that, and have the confidence to say, "I'm a writer"? Because it's not always, you don't have to write 100 blogs, you don't have to write a book. Anyone can be a writer. But personally, when did you start feeling like, hey, I have confidence, I'm going to introduce myself as a writer, I'm going to totally own this?
I'm not sure I'm there yet, to be honest. So I'm still getting there, and I feel like I still have a bit of this imposter syndrome where I'm proud of what the work I've done so far, but I still feel like there's so much more for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell people about my work, and I think I always use the social proof. So if I send it to a friend who doesn't know that I've done any writing, like, well, 80,000 people read this article. So it's kind of, I put that caveat in there because I'm trying to convince them that what I've done is worthy. And I'm using that, other people have liked it, so you might like it too. And I still feel some of my friends don't quite realize that I've had a bit of success so far. And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll read it one day."
But does that affect you at all? Are you discouraged if a friend doesn't engage with your writing, or is it just water off your back?
Yeah, just water off my back. I think it's like, I guess with everybody in life, everyone's got their own little things going on, and sometimes like some of my friends really love a piece and they'll tell me that. And other times they just kind of don't reply to that bit and reply to the rest of the conversation. So, but it's also interesting because people aren't always interested in everything I write. So if I'm writing about how to start writing, it's not something that interests some of my friends, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that if I put too much pressure on myself or care about people's opinions too much, I'd never get anything done.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting kind of parallel that I have and share with you. There is a lot of my friends pre-medium or pre-self-identification as writer. So the first, 25, 26 years of my life are from a completely different world. And now I have this entire new ecosystem and friend group that exists digitally, that exists on email lists, that exists via LinkedIn or via Medium when comment sections, and it's like, hey, they don't know about each other. These two worlds don't have any idea. So if I post something on Instagram or Facebook about a new writing, all of the friends from high school and university don't really engage with it or care. But I have all these new friends from the past 2 years. So I definitely share that with you.
Yeah, at the moment I'm keeping the world separate a bit, to be honest. I'm kind of slowly telling more and more friends.
Okay.
But it's my personal Instagram, it's not on there at all. People on my personal Instagram have no idea. Same with my LinkedIn, I'm not quite at the stage where I'm confident enough to share it like that. So to me, it's somewhere which I want to reach and gradually build that confidence.
Well, if there is any way to contribute to that confidence, let me know, because I am a fan, and anyone that you need me to talk to let them know about your writing, I will be happy to do so.
Thank you.
One of the questions that writers kind of often get is about this writer's integrity. And I think Medium has really complicated that, because Medium has created this platform where you see stats, you have data, you have insights, you can see growth, and you see daily earnings calculated. So a traditional blog might be, hey, I write to write. Now people might be joining Medium and saying, this is a source of income. I'm going to write and make some money. Where do you land in this complicated conversation?
I think so. I never expected to make any money. I kind of started off like, oh, maybe it would be a good idea, and one day I could make some money on it. But then because I had luck at the beginning, then it totally distorted my view afterwards. So because my second article went huge, then I've stopped looking at stats completely now, because I'm always going to compare to that peak.
Mm-hmm.
So last month, so in April, I didn't check my income at all until the end of the month. And I think it's a good way of kind of keeping me sane. And another thing I've started doing as well is I don't open any of my notifications on Medium. So through emails, I can see if somebody's responded or if there's a private note. And that way I can engage with people that need engaging.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself a lot of the time kind of chasing the money and chasing the stats. And I'm trying to pull back from that a bit, because if I can write that adds value to people, then the money should follow from that.
Mm-hmm. Where does that discipline come from? If you have one of your first stories goes viral and you've tasted the sweetest fruit, to then have the discipline months later to not only just not check for a day, but go a full month without checking, I can imagine insatiable curiosity would come up and just be bubbling. How did you cultivate the discipline to not give into that?
I think I like setting myself challenges, and it's that kind of what I tend to do as well. I tell people that, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's a challenge I make myself that I'm going to get through to the end and I'm going to keep it up. So I think as well, what I found is with that first viral article, I was checking my stats every 10 minutes. And I constantly said, have I got another like? Have I got another clap? And I just found it was sucking up so much time. And eventually that high went down. And I was checking all the time, but I was just getting disappointed all the time. And if I spent that time instead writing, that would have been much more productive and I would have got more done. Because I still have the habit of like checking my emails, refreshing, have I got anything? But I'm kind of trying to cut it down. So I'm tiering it as well. So first of all, it was the not checking the earnings. Now it's not checking notifications. And then eventually I can just go completely
Yeah,
zen, but I'm not sure I can manage it. We'll see how it goes.
I have a feeling that a lot of this comes from things that you've learned, and you've written about some of them recently, and I want to get into that. But just before, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. I'm grateful for writers like Amardeep, writers who write to relate, writers who educate. It's clear that anything Amardeep experiences or learns, he wants to share with us, and I'm grateful for that. So, taking his lead, I want to share something that works for me, and that's meditation. I meditate every morning. I do it right when I wake up before I even check my phone, and what's made it easier over the years is having a sacred spot that I return to every morning, having my cushions. I use Half Moon's Mod cushion and the Zabuton, so I use those together, and it's really comfortable on the body. And I really can't recommend it enough. I believe in the benefits. I feel the benefits. I see it. So I strongly encourage you to check out Half Moon and just learn some yoga and get going on yourself. So, do you meditate? Now your answer could be yes. The harder question is, do you get enough curcumin? Curcumin is one of the main properties in turmeric. And one of our other partners, Golden, makes a turmeric latte mix. So it comes in this powder, add it to hot water, add it to almond milk, oat milk, however you want to create it, and it's a incredible beverage. Not only is it healthy and warming, but it tastes damn good. So I'll include notes to all of them in the bio, and check those out. But before you do, listen to the rest of this conversation with Amardeep, and I'll talk to you after. Welcome back to the Rough Draft. We have on the man, the writer, now confidently defining himself as Amardeep Parmar. And before the break, I talked about a story that I read that one of the concepts of I just kind of heard, and it was about this idea of the immovable mind. You know, it seems like you have the ability to set your mind to something. And what I took from it was you talked about, I believe it's Fudoshin, and it's translate to immovable mind, and it's a Japanese concept. And in your piece, you talked about it, you know, if you have a sweet tooth, no matter what reasoning or logic, you're going to eat that cake. And this is something that I struggle with. I just had 2 cookies today. I didn't want to have them for breakfast, but I had 2 cookies for breakfast. And rereading your post in preparation for this surfaced that, and I found comfort in it. But this piece, 4 Japanese concepts to transform your state of mind. What I was so impressed with was this didn't come from a book. This came from, you've been there, you've visited, you've seen this in practice, you've observed it, you've felt it, you've breathed it. What else can you tell me about this piece and how important it was to you?
It's kind of the piece that's set me up. So anything I do from here on out is going to be because of this piece. And I think I struggled a lot at the beginning when I was deciding on what to write, because it was quite overwhelming for me. There were so many different things I could write about. And it was somebody I follow from the karate world who'd posted about one of those mindsets. And it kind of made me think, well, that's something I love. And it's something I want to get back in touch with myself. So I went to Okinawa in about 2013. And it's one of those things I always want to go back there. And it's my dream to go back again. So I'm training back up and trying to get there. So for me, it was something I love. And if I can write about that, I think it comes across. So it's just that I think that's what sets it apart from everything else I've written, is not having any expectations and just truly writing what I think is valuable to people.
Yeah, that was, for anyone listening or watching, it was called The 4 Japanese Concepts to Transform Your State of Mind. And we'll link that in show notes and bio. Are there other pieces you've written that have become favorites of yours?
I think so. After I wrote that piece, then I went deep dive into each of those different mindsets. And I love that because it was that self-exploration of what these concepts mean to me, and then trying to take that and trying to make it useful for people. Because it's one thing to know it in my head, but it's another to be able to explain it and to help other people through that. There's a few other ones I've loved as well. So I've written a couple about learning and how to take on learning faster and make yourself more adaptable. And I think this is kind of the underlying thread between everything I do is I love reading, I love learning new things. And it's that curiosity, I think, that keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
So those pieces in particular stand out as well as ones I
as a reader of yours, you can tell that you're a student, that you can tell that when you're not on the keyboard and not writing, you're reading, you're learning something, so that some of your pieces may, as much as we benefit the readers, they may benefit you as well, because it's something you get to go back to and say, I got to learn about these 4 mindsets, and giving yourself that gift. And now we get the gift too, just because we get to read and follow you. So it's a special thing, and I want to make sure that I express gratitude for that, because reading through your pieces is transformative. I know you've studied other writers on Medium. You've digested a bunch of content, and you even said that you started on Medium reading others. Has there been a favorite piece of yours written by someone else that you return to, that you link, that you highlight, you send around and say, you got to check this out?
Oh, there's so many. So I was thinking before this interview, I was trying to come up with just one of these articles. And I think one that stands out is by Danny Forrest. So it's called How to Be Self-Aware, the Complete Guide. And what I love about it, it's 24 minutes long for a read.
Wow.
And it's that kind of curiosity that comes across. Like, he's really gone to town and looked into everything he possibly can about this subject. And he's interpreted and tried to make it as easy as possible for the reader. And I think I love that about it, and about some of his other pieces is he's not just trying to smash out an article in a few hours. He's really gone to town, and it's really about him offering value and giving something to the readers. And I think it comes across when I read other people's pieces, when they're writing it because they want to write something for the day, or they're trying to get something done in a couple of hours. And when this is something they've studied, this is something they love, and they want to get it across and want to get that message out.
I want to hear your thoughts on that last piece, which is about some of the writers who feel push work, publish. Yet you publish maybe once a week, and I have conflictions with this. I read the book. It's called Originals by Adam Grant, and in it there's a quote from Ira Glass from NPR, and he says, one of the most important things you can do as a creator is do as much work as possible, or the largest volume of work as possible, which I interpret as write, publish. But I also really believe in not releasing a shitty product. I want to make sure that everything's quality and representative of the brand. What's your relationship to this push and pull and this commitment to yourself and honoring your work and your writing, and not the rat race?
I think it comes from karate again, like my mindset on this. It's some people I see train for 20 years, but all they're doing is turning up. They're not thinking about what they're doing. They're not trying to get better. So I'd say if somebody's creating every single day, but there's no thought going into it, they're not thinking, how can I improve? How can I make this better? Then they're not going to grow as much as somebody who writes less. But each piece they're really thinking hard about, and they're trying to learn from it. Mm-hmm. So I do think there's a balance. I think you do have to do you need to create a lot of content to get to that kind of level. But it's, what's the phrase? Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're just practicing every day, you're just making those things permanent. So if you write a piece every day that your heart isn't in, all you're doing is getting very good at writing a piece where your heart isn't in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the exercising of your writing skills and developing those can be behind the scenes. Yet what you push public can be the thing that you've invested more time into. And there may not ever be the right answer, and it may just be a personal one, but as someone who studies as much as you do and looks into things, I definitely would lean favorably towards following your guidance there. And on the topic of guidance, one of the final questions is to new writers. You're, call it still green to the whole writing world, but you found success. You've written stories about the 25 best ways for writers to grow. You've talked about the 4 things that someone should do, like day one, after you sign up and become a member, 4 things you should do. What are some other tips you have for new writers?
I'd say one of the first things to do is to make sure you know exactly what you want to do and to like devour everything you can find. So what I find is I'm a moderator of one of the Facebook groups. And sometimes you see people who've written a couple of articles who you can tell they haven't yet read like the guidelines, and it's get the basics down and get them down so you can have this really solid foundation. Because then when you reach out to people for help, they can see that you've put in that work, and it makes people want to help people who help themselves. So it's really like, don't just rush in without thinking. Think about it. Think about, how can I add value? How can I make myself useful? Because readers don't want to read just because you want them to read. They want to get something from you. And you've got to think about, what's the experiences in my life? What do I know that could help somebody? How can I make their lives better? Whereas if you're just writing because how can I get views? How can I get reads? Then you're looking at it from the wrong perspective, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reads and views follow the value.
Yeah, and I feel guilty of, I think, contributing sometimes, because I've written stories that dissect what a successful article has looked like for me, and new readers will jump on, and sometimes we try to emulate others' success. And I'm recently stepping back a little bit from that, and I think trying to follow your lead on that, of make sure that I am in alignment and I'm not writing for click and not writing for view. And it's a complicated relationship to
It is, yeah. So yeah.
With you spoke about working in tech, and you also told me about your background in karate, which I had some knowledge of. But away from the keyboard, who else are you? Where are you incubating ideas? What are you doing when you're not on the laptop churning out articles?
Well, life at the moment is quite unique with the lockdown procedure, but I think it's always finding something to inspire me. So one thing I use the Blinkist app. So you get the book summaries of different people. And I love reading those in my commute to work or listening. And then it's just finding people in your life who inspire you, making sure that you look after your friends, that you listen to what's going on in their lives. Because I think sometimes it happens in writing where people say, you've got to do everything 1,000 times to learn. But if you find the right people and the right friends, then you learn together. And I think you can grow much faster. Because some of the ideas I've had and some of the articles I've written is from a conversation with a friend where we've been talking about something.
Yeah.
And it's made me think. And then I've gone on to think about it and see how this is something which I think is valuable to other people. Then, so other random things I do is, so I do a lot of yoga. Well, not at the moment, but once life goes back to normal again, yoga is one of the big things I enjoy, and it gives me that sense of calm.
I can tell you have this calm and disciplined demeanor that comes out in your writing, that comes out in conversation with you, but it's also very compassionate. and it's kind. It's not an aggressive demeanor, which makes it even more powerful. And I know that it's genuine, having read more of your pieces, having read the piece about 5 things that are just way more important than writing. And you talk about family, relationships, integrity, and investing in yourself. And it's consistent. That is, I think one of the earlier questions I had was, what's a marker of your writing? And I would really say that it's, this consistent authenticity. Article after article, it's going to be educational, but readers are also going to be able to relate to it. So thank you for that, and thanks for joining me. Before I let you go, what's next? What are you working on next? What's the big project that is you're incubating, or you're potentially even acting on right now?
So I've currently got 70 headlines which I want to write.
70.
So I've got 70, yeah. So my problem is, I think I'm very good at ideas and very slow at writing. I think I just love coming up with ideas and things to talk about.
So what
is translating it
after that? You have 70 ideas. What's the selection process that brings it to publish?
What I do is, when I'm trying to think of what to write next, I kind of do a brain dump. So if one looks interesting at the moment, I just write down everything I can on that without looking at anywhere else. And if I'm struggling to do that, then that's not the piece for right now. And I've got the information there, so when later in the future it might be the right piece for me, and then I can come back and add more. And sometimes it's just what I feel passionate about at that time. So often it is conversations with friends that kind of trigger me, where I've come up with an idea and then it's in my backlog, and then I have a conversation with friends, and I bring up the stuff that I would write in that article. I was like, okay, this is really something that's interesting and something which I think a lot of people benefit from, and it pushes out to the top of my list.
And is this, where do you manage everything on like Google Docs or Google Sheets, or what's your organization look like?
So I use something called Airtable.
Airtable, okay.
Yeah. So I hadn't really heard of it before, but when I was trying to find something which would work, I found this. And what I like about it is that it gives you the kind of color and the tags and everything like that, which is great for Medium.
Perfect.
And it just makes it a little bit less boring to look at than a spreadsheet. And it gives you that color, and you can see the tags, and it just makes it more pleasant, I think.
I'm going to have to look into that. Amardeep, Amardeep, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show, for all that you're doing on Medium, all that you're doing off Medium. I wish I lived in the same neighborhood as you so I could have this type of energy around me, but it's something that I will be taking with me. For everyone else who wants to take a bit of you with them, where are the best places to follow you? Where can we read your work, learn more about you?
The best place at the moment is on Medium itself. So I can send the byline afterwards. Awesome. I'm starting on Quora a bit more. So I think Quora is a great space because people are asking questions. So that helps a writer a lot, because if you're trying to help people, the best way to know what people want to know is to see what they're asking. And then slowly building up Twitter as well. Okay. And is there a newsletter? There's a newsletter, but I haven't written one yet. So I'm starting to build up my email list. Okay. And I'm probably going to take some tips from you later on. There's a landing page that we can sign up on? Yeah, there is, yeah. Awesome. So I'll make sure to link all of that in show notes and bios and share that. And thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. And I look forward to checking out more of your work the next time you publish on Medium. Thank you for having me. I look forward to watching other interviews too. Curiosity, self-exploration, getting to know yourself better. Did that pop up for you while listening to that episode? Because listening back, it was so clear that Amardeep is such an advocate for this everlasting curiosity, being a student of life. And it also made me a lot more comfortable with the 3 books that arrived on my doorstep today, because I know that I'm going to learn a lot from them. So thank you to Amardeep, and thank you to Half Moon Yoga and Meditation and Golden Root,
both of you being able to partner with this show and support writers like myself and around the world with products that nourish and foster creativity. It allows us to do what we do. So thank you.